Hello, everybody. Veronica Cole here. I'm a little bit early, a couple of minutes. So I'm just going to wait for a couple of minutes for people to come on, and then we'll get going. If you're on, just please say hi. Let me know. Let me know you're here. Sometimes I can see your comments and sometimes I can't. I'm not able to respond to comments, but I can respond to them after the event. I will answer any questions, or if you have a particular something that you would like me to address perhaps tomorrow, you could put that in the comments and I will be sure to get it. So I know that we have 14 people registered, and a lot of people have been viewing this. So I'm taking it that um, there's a lot of people that are just looking at this after the event has ended. So last night I was kind of surprised to see so many people had viewed it. So that's a good thing because I would like to get all this information to get out there and let people know that there is support and there is help and that there are different ways to heal. And it's never just one thing, which is one of the reasons why I'm a holistic psychotherapist. Because as a holistic psychotherapist, as I said yesterday, I bring in a lot of different modalities aside from regular psychotherapy, which is talk therapy. But I also do energy work and somatic work, which is also energy work, and CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. It involves writing, but all of these things really are geared toward the individual. So, not everybody this would be right for, but some people may like some things and may resonate with them, and others would prefer something that would be a little bit different. I also believe that people need to do body work. You know, I've been getting massage for many years now, and I was getting them weekly until we hit COVID. And even when I was living in Europe, sometimes I would go twice a week. It's very common in Europe to utilize massage as a part of their regular daily routine. And so that was good for me. And when I was in Germany, the Germans are very interested in health. So there were a lot of options for me. And I was in love with that. I think that, focusing on self care is important. Focusing on the physical is important, but also the emotional. So we can't forget the body, mind, and spirit, of which I utilize and combine in all of my work because we're all whole people. We're not just a body, and we're not just a spirit, and we're not just our feelings, but all of these things combined make us very dynamic individuals when they work together and when they're really all working together. There is so much in your life that just progresses and changes just because of the fact that you have expanded your own consciousness. So I am going to now begin, and I want to make sure that everybody has their booklet. Now, your booklet looks just like this, except that my picture is on it, and here it wasn't. Today is the second day, and we're talking about how does guided imagery slash visualization help with loss and ways to utilize guided imagery. Well, the first thing that I wanted to do is just touch briefly upon what we spoke of yesterday, which is list 3 ways sacred alchemy can transform your pain. And it is all through the energetic energy, the energy of love. And it is in a particular way that would occur through community, it would occur through loving relationships. Um, that is just a couple of different ways that you can do this with love. But a lot of times people have a resistance to this because you've got to utilize all of your feelings and become aware of them. So that's another way to do it, is to develop your awareness, develop your consciousness, develop the part of you that is feeling. You want to identify your feelings, and many of us have a very hard time identifying the subtlety of our feelings. So that is another aspect of sacred alchemy that we really need to work on. Um, it helps with all parts of you. And as you're working with sacred alchemy, it can heal pain, it can heal physical illnesses. Um, there is nothing that sacred alchemy cannot work through if you're focusing on it. Now, how much it works through, as we spoke of yesterday, we do have a hand in the cards that were dealt when it comes to our destiny. We can really help shape our destiny by the choices that we make, but not when it comes to our fate, because our fate, we just don't know that. So I feel that as long as we're here on this planet, if we want to live a full life, then we want to be able to work within all the elements that are available to us, all of the parts of us that make us the wonderful human beings that we are, that you are. So, as you're listening to me, I would like you to recognize that the reason that I have this particular booklet is because, like I mentioned yesterday, and with homework, is that it's not just about me being a school teacher and looking over your homework and saying, that's great, look at this. He or she knows this and they understand it. But it's because I'm trying to help you to get that information, and so that it really goes into your memory bank. And one of the best ways, and many of you may have known about this, is, flashcards are wonderful. And I went through all of my graduate work with utilizing flashcards. I was a high honors student, and I really owe that all to flashcards because I had to memorize not only texts and models and theories, but also for statistics, and which was not my best subject, but I did well in it because I was determined. And I was a huge flashcard person. So we know that if we're putting it in our memory bank when we hear somebody talking, if we're writing it down, and if we're reading it, we're getting it in three different ways. And that's how we learn. So I want to encourage you to do that as well. So today we're going to talk about guided imagery. And guided imagery is a form of self hypnosis. Now, I've been doing guided imagery for more than 20 years. And I've utilized guided imagery for so many, many different things, for just focusing myself. Before I would have an event, I wanted to be very focused. I would utilize guided imagery, or I would do some breath work, which later on this week we will do a little bit of that. But I found that there's a particular way to do guided imagery. And guided imagery is not just about meditation. Now, meditation is it's critical, because when you meditate, you are also activating the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's what you want to relax, and that's what helps you to relieve your anxiety, to relieve stress, and then that also helps you to focus. And it is uh, not only is it hypnosis, but it is actively focusing your mind. It's focusing particularly on things, and since it involves all the senses, which is sight, which is touch, and which is taste, all of those things are involved with guided imagery. So I would like to do a small visualization, a small guided imagery for you after I talk with you a little bit about this. So it puts you in a trance state when you're utilizing guided imagery. And there has been so much research about this. There are studies that were done by Martin Roseman, and he had discovered when he was working with certain individuals, like years ago, Carl Simonton and his wife at the time, Stephanie Matthews, were utilizing forms of guided imagery for people who were contending with cancer. And I had worked with a lot of terminally ill cancer patients. And this way of helping individuals relax and bring peace and helping them to focus became very instrumental in their own healing process. Because when they were focusing in this way, they found that, first of all, they could actually visualize the cells becoming healthier and shedding whatever it is. If they wanted to use that word or that visualization, it would have to resonate with that particular individual in order for it to be effective. That's the other thing that helps make guided imagery so powerful, because we can make it our own. So when you're talking about the left brain processes sequentially, and then the right brain is more of the way you think. So what you want to do is bring those two hemispheres together. And in bringing those together, you're bringing apart the whole, you're bringing inside the whole brain processing. And when you do that, that's when a lot of the energetic processing can happen in terms of what happens to you internally and what you're visualizing. So I am going to do a short guided imagery with you to give you an idea, because imagery often it shows the big picture of something. If you want to learn something more and you have this imagery going on in your mind about a problem that you want to solve, you could just place that particular image in your mind and you could see it expanding and see where it's going, and it could help you to discover further answers. And this is where illness comes in too. There are things that you may not have even thought were important that would become realized and focused upon when you're utilizing guided imagery. So you will then also have a change in your perspective about your own healing, because this allows you to put together ideas in many new ways, in ways that you never really would have even thought of. So it produces new solutions to old problems. And a right brain point of view may present the opportunity for finding out what is hidden in a problem. And, as human beings, we are all saddled with so many different things that we're trying to work through at any given time. And this can help you do that. So I am going to do a small guided imagery with you. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to get yourself in a comfortable position and close your eyes. And we're going to do this for maybe 5 minutes. And what I'd like you to do is place your hands on your belly and breathe deeply with your belly rising through your mouth. And then exhale very slowly. Again, breathe and through your mouth and watch your belly rise. And now you can hold it a couple of seconds and release. And now I'd like you to imagine that you are faced in front of a beautiful, beautiful field of flowers, and they're bright yellow, bright pinks, purples, greens, reds, all the colors that you could imagine are in this beautiful field of flowers before you. Even if you can't imagine the field of flowers specifically, just allow yourself to imagine the colors and begin to walk through this field of flowers. And as you do, you could allow yourself to touch the flowers as you're going by. You may want to stop and pick one of the flowers. Notice its vibrant color. And as you're looking at this flower, notice the petals of the flower. Notice how they stand. Do they stand up? Are they sort of down around the stem? Just look at the positioning of the flower. And as you do so, allow yourself to drink in the colors that are surrounding you with this wonderful field of flowers and the flowers that you are holding in your hand. Feel what the petal feels like in the stem. Is it a very soft petal, or is it a little bit stiff? If you feel the stem, is the stem somewhat hard? Possibly because it's been standing in a field. And just notice how it looks. Now put the flower up to your nose and just breathe it in. Whatever scent you are picking up, maybe there isn't much of a scent, but maybe the flower that you have, and remember this is your visualization, it might have a delightful scent. So whatever you're smelling, allow yourself to take in that scent. You see it with your eyes. You smell it. And you can feel it. And just take your tongue and touch perhaps the inner part of the flower or any part that you like, and allow your tongue to touch it very gently. Feel the feeling of your tongue touching that flower. And as you do so, is there a particular taste to that flower? Perhaps. Perhaps not. And allow yourself to sit in the field of flowers, surrounded by their beauty. Look up at the sky and see the beautiful clouds in the distance and the brilliant blue sky that is above you. Feel the love of nature that is completely surrounding you. And there are flowers for as far as the eye can see. And now you'll walk back up to the place where you started from. going gently through the field, gently walking through the field, appreciating the beauty of life all around you. And when you are ready, you can open your eyes and come back into the room. So you might want to just rub your thighs, bringing yourself back into the room. You might want to stretch a little bit. Feel yourself very, very present now. That is a very, very tiny example of what guided imagery actually is. So, okay. Now, I don't know what the responses are to having this tiny little bit of guided imagery, but if you'd like to write in the comments what you may have experienced, it could just be relaxation. It could be that you experienced the colors. It could be that you smelled the flowers. And it also could be that you even tasted some of the flowers, right? So, what the guided imagery does is it mobilizes your unconscious and it processes things for you, and it helps with your conscious growth. So, if you think of like dropping a weight deep within you where everything reverberates out, or if you were to take a rock and put it into, let's say, skipping along the water and then allowing it to fall down and allowing it to reverberate, this is what guided imagery can do for you. That's an energetic flow of what happens to you when you allow yourself to have this energy flow. So this has been evidence-based that, so much guided imagery has been utilized over the years. Now, I had a surgery back in, I actually had two surgeries back in, I believe it was 2010 and maybe 2011. And as a result of, what I did was I had a guided imagery specifically for surgery and for recovery. And I did not have uh, any kind of pain when I came out of surgery, either one. I did not have to have painkillers when it came to my recovery time, especially with the one I had sustained a bad burn and needed to have um, a skin graft. And that surgical procedure was pretty intense, but I was really glad that I was able to have it done because it saved my leg. It started to have a lot of infection in it as a result of the burn. So anyway, I was able to get this surgery, and I did not need painkillers. Um, it was just phenomenal, and I know that it was because my mind was geared to healing. I utilized the guided imagery. Now, like I said, it's just been evidence-based. There's been 40 years of study surrounding this. And one of the best individuals that I know with the most amount of guided imagery CDs, now they're downloads, is Belle Ruth Nepperstack. And Belle Ruth Nepperstack has guided imagery for everything, everything. And as a matter of fact, I utilized the one that she had for surgery and was very grateful to have it and for my recovery afterwards. And I would listen to it in the evening just before I was going to bed. And, it's even been proven that sometimes people don't have a chance to listen to it very often before they have their surgery. And sometimes even listening to it once or twice can really be the thing that gets your unconscious primed and ready for the surgery and helps you to to heal. So it helps with health, wellness, with your attitude, with behavioral change. Um, so, in less than 10 minutes of hypnotic guided meditation, it can reduce stress, it can reduce your blood pressure. This is all evidence based and proven. It is phenomenal for reducing cholesterol and your A1C levels if you're a diabetic. That's a very important factor too. It has been proven to help people with their diabetes. It can heighten your short term immune cell activity, which is important when you're talking about healing from an illness. So, you want there to be a lot of heightened immune activity. It helps with healing fractures, burns, such as what I had sustained. So, there is so much benefit to doing guided imagery, even 10 minutes a day, that could really help you. And you can make your own guided imagery. You could do it something like what I have done, just incorporate all of your senses, and it will lower your anxiety. It will increase, for some people, athletic mastery. Now, I know for a fact when I read this book that Tiger Woods had utilized this. And I also read it in a magazine that he utilized it for his golfing. And when his golfing days were at their peak, that was what he did to be able to help himself. So it can be utilized to develop confidence, to develop your writing skills, acting, singing, test taking, public speaking. Uh, People have utilized it for weight loss and for smoking cessation. So it's also been proven effective during chemotherapy. It'll lessen the side effects that people will have with chemotherapy. And ventilators during COVID, this in particular was very important for people who were on ventilators um, during dialysis. So anything that you can think of that you would be working on with your body, you can utilize guided imagery. Doing a regular practice, it can increase your emotional depth, your spirituality. It can increase your intuition, your empathy, and your abstract thinking. So it is safe, it's gentle, it's a powerful tool, and there's not enough good things I can say about this, especially over time. It works on your unconscious while you sleep. And if you want to know of a good place to go for some of this guided imagery, you can go to just plug in Google Belruth, Beleruth, Neparstic, or Neperstak. They pronounce it two different ways, but Neparstak, I believe. And so I really wanted to make sure that you understood this about guided imagery, because now you know ways to utilize it and the ways that it can work with loss. Because if it's alleviating anxiety, it's putting you into a focused state of mind where you could bring in whatever healing element that you want to bring into your consciousness. So, the other thing that I wanted to bring in today is talking a little bit about consciousness, our unconscious and our consciousness, and what that means. And there's a pre-conscious as well, because to the extent that we are unwittingly identified with our unconscious, and I'll tell you what that is in a moment, as opposed to being consciously aware of our thoughts, is the extent to how we act out, or how we really begin to um, work with the unconscious. You know, if we're not aware of something, of course we're unconscious, right? If we're not aware of it. But once we are aware of something, then it's in our conscious mind. We know how to utilize it. We know what we want to do with it. Um, there is a collective unconscious, and that's a lot of what Carl Jung, who is a very famous psychologist, psychiatrist, and he really writes a lot about the collective unconscious, which is the deepest unconscious that we have. And this is passed on, according to Jung, genetically. And it is not just about you, the unconscious, but it's the collective is about all the unconscious. And that's a big concept to grasp. But if you think about, well, you know, I'm a Kundalini instructor also, and I had learned Kundalini and was certified back in 2010, I believe. And one of the things about that we learned that I found that was surprising, and subsequently I've been reading more and more about it, is that we go back for 7 generations. We bring those generations forward with us. So we can bring in some of the emotional elements of our history and our ancestors with us. And that is part of the collective unconscious. And that's a lot of what Jung refers to when he talks about the collective unconscious, which is it actually is everything since the beginning of time, every human being since the beginning of time. Now, has anybody ever, thought of an idea and you've never heard of it or seen of it before, and then all of a sudden other people are beginning to talk about it, or other people are bringing it up? Now, I've experienced that in my writing. There really weren't people talking about sacred alchemy, but then I was writing about it and I was doing workshops on it, and then all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but I would say maybe like about maybe 2 years later, I started seeing that there was certain things that were being written about sacred alchemy, because now we're in an age where we're always bringing in spirit. So a lot of this, I know it, somebody who was an inventor, by the way, he had invented a particular type of an earplug, I believe it was, for musicians. And he didn't go and get it patented at the time, and he was going to do it at another time. Well, a year later, somebody came out with the exact same plug that he had developed, and he was an audiologist, and he had developed this, and many musicians were using it, but he didn't go and get a patent for it. So he was just doing it as a favor to particular musicians that he knew. So to me, that is part of the collective unconscious. It's kind of like where take these ideas kind of go through the ethers. So there are 3 types or 3 levels of awareness. Now we can call them consciousness, 3 types of them, or 3 levels of awareness. And for the sake of simplicity, I tell people you could just call them 3 levels of awareness. And there is the conscious, and then there is the pre-conscious, and then there is the unconscious. So I've got a little homemade diagram here where I'd like to show you this. And here, of course, is the conscious mind, right? That's all in your um, thinking of the moment, right? It's all the knowledge that you know that you can have and that you can get in touch with right now. And then there is the preconscious, which is when something is just getting ready to come out. You might have it, you might say, I have it on the tip of my tongue, I would like to, but it's not really conscious yet. And then there is the unconscious, and that is where we are most of the time. We don't realize it, but we're living in the unconscious an awful lot until we develop ourselves and get to more of a conscious state. So I've also indicated in here the id. Now the id, which is also in the unconscious, is something that we have from birth, and it includes your instincts, and it includes your primitive behaviors, and you want immediate gratification with the id. It needs, these are about having needs met, like drinking water, be, being fed, having food. And if you think about a baby crying, a baby that is hungry or that is wet, and the reason that they're crying is because they do have a need that needs to be met. And that's where the id resides. It's in that very, very primitive part of us. Then we have the ego, and the ego deals with reality function. Like, well, how do I get to this place? How do I do that? Um, it's about going to figure things out that are in your best interest. What are you going to do? But it's also there are different portions of our ego, and there is one that is definitely about survival, helping us to make decisions that are healthy and that are right, and that oftentimes are about the intellect. But then there is the part of our ego, which is the wounded part of us. And a lot of times, that, even though we're referring to that as the ego, it is also in the unconscious, because our wounds many times are not things that we are aware of, like the conscious part of us. The conscious part of us is very aware of all things that are going on. And the preconscious are things that you can focus on, but you have to give it more stimulation, and it's not really ready to come up. But if you're developing your ability to deal with your wounds, that's where the unconscious lies. And as you begin to recognize those wounds and to deal with them, uh, it starts to go into the pre-conscious state. And that's where you start going, oh, you have an idea that you're thinking that maybe this is what's going on. You'll start recognizing things that you had never realized before. So I'm bringing that up because I want people to understand that, the ego, yes, the ego is important, but there are many aspects of the ego, and some of them are just, like for instance, with when we're talking about the different states of consciousness, um, the ego does contain our wounds too. But we have to learn to recognize what is a wound, what is our wounded ego, and then we need to recognize what is the part of us that is making a good decision for ourselves. Um, Depression is part of a downward spiral, and depression is often seen as an unrecognized aspect of ourselves. Now, without going into a lot of psychology surrounding that, I will say is that, to heal, you want to, you really want to help your nervous system to go to a place where there is peace and where you can bring it some calm. And that's where certain meditations and certain things like what we just did with that very small example of what guided imagery is that you can do that. Because you do want to be in peace and you do want tranquility in your life. It's no fun to be in that anxious state and to feel like, that you're out of control. And, when your nervous system, and that's one of the first things that begins to happen to us when we have any kind of trauma, any kind of sadness, depressive feelings, it's our nervous system that's affected. So, bringing our nervous system into a state of peace and calm is where we want to be. Um, we're going to later on this week, we're going to work on certain things that we can do to calm the nervous system, and we'll do them on here so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about and you'll get to know a little bit more about that. So, you need empathy to heal, and you need people to listen to what you're feeling and thinking. And, not all friends could do this, right? We have friends that we care about, and if we're lucky, we have people that will hear us, like I had with my friend when my brothers had died. But that is not the norm for most people and most friends. Most friends do not have that capacity to hold all of that. And in reality, it's not really fair to expect a good friend to just be constantly taking in all of that information and all of those feelings. Because as an empath, and many people that come to my workshops are empaths, they feel things very deeply, they can sense what other people are feeling. They may have a hard time recognizing their own feelings, but they do oftentimes know what other people are feeling. And I know myself that if I go into a crowded area, which you normally would never find me in a concert or in an environment with a lot of people, because I find that I get overwhelmed easily. And the way that I calm myself is I will pick and choose. Now, if I'm going to be in an environment where there are a lot of people, then I will be sure that where I'm sitting is not going to be in the middle of someplace. I like to be on the end, and I would like to be in an area where there might be a row that's empty behind me, like a space in between rows. Um, that's one way that I can do a concert, but it also has to be a particular kind of concert. I can't go to anything where there is just a lot of uncontrolled behavior going on. So I'm all about peace and quiet, guys. It's not very exciting, but but it's what keeps me sane, okay? So in order to heal, we need to have those around me, and around you who will understand and hear you. Because again, as empaths, it's like you are like you're like an emotional broadcaster. You're always picking things up like antenna that are all around you. And you're also picking up all these broadcasts, these emotional broadcasts from people. And until you can learn to know that that's not what you need to be doing all the time, and you know how to deflect some of that, you can get overwhelmed very easily. So I learned, very long ago that there are certain things that I could do that would help myself to remain in more of a calm and peaceful state because of my sensitivity, because I'm a highly sensitive person. And I have a feeling that many of you that are listening to this are highly sensitive as well. So you want to keep your nervous system calm. You want to be in a calm state so that anxiety and depression are lowered. And we also don't recover alone. So we might have these wonderful friends and we might have professional help to help us, but we also can find it in groups of people, small groups of people that really get you and that understand you. This is why there is a power that helps us to heal in a group of people that really understand your situation. And many of those exist. Now, there are many that exist without having to pay for them, but a lot of times, unless there is something specific that you can tune into and that they really understand you, A lot of times people will have a regular therapy, therapy in a group, and it'll be with a professional who will understand exactly what it is to run that group and to know how to bring people together and how to help others heal. And you want this to be in a dynamic of love. It shouldn't be in a chaotic dynamic. Because again, we don't recover alone. I don't know how well I could say that. You know, we're not meant to be alone, but a lot of times our losses convince us that we need to be alone, and then our wounds get triggered. Now, I mentioned this yesterday. Any kind of a loss that we might have as an adult, and if we have not healed the losses that we endured as a child or as a younger person, they can be reactivated again when we're going through a loss. And again, it's not only a loss of a person, but it can be the loss of a financial disaster, a physical disaster, which, you know, you lose your home. It can be it can also be being betrayed. Betrayal is a big loss too, because you thought you had the love and the understanding of somebody, and you discovered that you didn't. There are so many more, and illness can trigger some of these things off too. And many of us have endured illnesses that were unexpected as we became older people, and life got in the way. And sometimes, you know, like me, with what happened to me when I had sustained a parasitic infection. Um, but also, you know, like I have a brother that sustained a very, very serious injury when he was in his early 30s. And, you know, things happen all the time. It's not just for people that are over 18, right? We could have endured something when we were younger, but the point is that all of these things, unless they are healed, and when I say healed, I don't mean that you will never, ever experience anything again from those pains or from that trauma. But what will happen is the healing will strengthen the core of who you are. It will put things in perspective because you will begin to see things in a different way. And as you see things in a different way, and as you heal those wounds because someone is hearing you, you're able to express your feelings, you're getting acknowledgement, you're able to work through all of those different pieces that have occurred. What happens is your consciousness, your awareness expands. When you have an internal expansion, it's not just a little piece of you that gets bigger and grows, but it's all of you in a way that all parts of you, mind, body, spirit, are working together. Your feelings, all of this is working together more congruently. And it's the congruency which is part of the healing. So, for instance, I did not have for a few years, not a horrible time around the times of my brother's deaths. I would feel sad. I always light a candle. I have their picture up and I put it in a prominent place so that I would see it when I'm going by it all that day. But for some reason last year, it was particularly traumatic for me. And I use the word traumatic because I felt like I was back in that place, but I didn't crumble. So I did not crumble. I did not feel like I could not function anymore. I had skills. I knew what I could do to orient myself and to be present. And I knew that it was okay for me to feel the feelings and I knew that they would pass. I knew that I wasn't going to be sad forever. And I also knew that this was part of my history, but that it's not my history now, but it's okay to feel it. So these feelings may reemerge, but they're just not going to be as powerful in the sense that they would, they would. take your breath away and make you feel like, well, what's going on here? Have I not healed enough? Well, yes, you have been healing if you've worked on yourself. But we are like beautiful flowers. We're like beautiful flowers that blossom. And for the rest of our lives, as long as we choose to be growth minded and to want to experience life and to want to grow and expand and be our best and highest selves, well, if that's going to happen, then that means we're going to continually grow. If we make that choice to continually be growth minded. Now, I don't know about anybody that's watching and listening now, but to me, since I have been through the healing of my brothers, the healing of the trauma that happened to me when I was in India and I had the parasitic infection, the trauma of the burn that I sustained, all of these things, and then the trauma of what I endured as a child. I'm probably not saying anything that many people that are listening right now have not endured. And if you have not endured it, that's great. But I'm thinking that you have your own issues that you have had to contend with and you have to deal with and that you want to heal from. And like I said yesterday, if you're not in the place where you want to heal, don't be harsh with yourself. If you're not there, you're not there. But just recognize that when you are ready to let go of those wounds that are choking you, that are preventing you from perhaps having the relationship that you want to have, from perhaps making the income that you would like to have, from perhaps going into a life where you have a home that you've been thinking about that you would like to have. Because, first of all of these things are just thoughts passing by if you don't do anything about it. If you're not doing anything about it, then you know what? Because people do not heal utilizing just your intellect. The intellect is not what's going to heal you. This is emotional work. And, people want things to be different all the time, but oftentimes don't want to do the work that's required to be able to heal, to be able to grow, because that's part of the growth tunnel. When you say you see the light at the end of the tunnel, well, the light at the end of the tunnel does exist, but sometimes we have to go through that tunnel. And it doesn't have to be the worst pain in the world because you've already been through it. You've already been through it. If you've lost a loved one, if you have lost something in your life that was so significant, a person or a situation or a miscarriage or whatever that is, you've been through that. You've suffered it. But don't continue to suffer over your suffering. When you're ready, get the support and get the help. Because again, like I said, you don't recover alone. You may need to have some professional help to work with somebody alone, but then it's always in the community of others that have experienced and understand you where you do heal. So just know that community heals, and it heals through connection. And I can tell you that, like I explained to you yesterday, from my own situation. Now, I was committed. I was committed to healing. And because when you're committed, you follow through. You follow through. And you recognize possibilities. I was recognizing what possibilities were for a long time. I was like thinking that there is a way. I know that there is a way. And I'm going to find it. And I did not leave any stone unturned. Did whatever it took. I got myself into therapy. I was in therapy, and I'm an avid believer in therapy. Obviously, I'm a therapist myself, but I think I could be in therapy forever and not regret it because I like the idea of having an objective party. So if you're just interested, like, oh, this is kind of interesting, you know, and you want results, you're not going to get them because it's just something that you're interested in, because you want the results, but you don't want to do the work, and you'll just have lots of excuses, and that's the wounded part of us. That's the wounded part of us that will come up and say, oh, it'll be okay. I'll feel better. I'm going to be seeing so and so next week and I'm going to be feeling a lot better. Or it'll tell you, you don't want to work on this. This is something that you don't want to work on. You're healed enough. Or it'll say, this is poppycock. May not use that word, but this is poppycock. You don't need to heal from anything. That's nuts. You've got everything that it takes. All these are messages that your unconscious, and what we just talked about, the unconscious, are trying to give you to keep you away from healing. Now, a lot of these are what I would call your wounded inner child. And the way that you know that this is not you and it's your wounded inner child is because it will continually thwart you from doing your best life, from doing the things that you know are the best thing for you. I'm not talking about crazy stuff. I'm not talking about, making a snap decision to buy something that's out of the range of what you can afford just because it's telling you, yes, go ahead and do it. That's also part of your wounds too. It wants to keep you strapped. But I'm talking about the part of you that is healthy and that loves you and that it's the adult, because you are the adult. And that's the part that you want to be running the show. You don't want a little 5-year-old driving the bus. If you have a 5-year-old driving the bus behind the wheel of a bus, what's going to happen to that bus at 5 years old? What do you think? Your 5-year-old self isn't going to do very well, isn't going to be able to get to your destination. So, you want to heal the soul wound and liberate the sacred in you so you can feel comfortable and you can thrive, right? And, you know, that's done with all these things that I'm just talking about in these first 2 days, because we're all energetic beings. We're all energetic beings. And we all can expand. We all can thrive. We all have so much that we can learn, but we don't always recognize the greatness of who we are. In an egoic sense, there is a part of us that might think, oh, I'm so fabulous, I'm this and that. I'm not talking about that part of the ego. That is also part of our wounds, because that expanded ego that is just talking about being the best and knowing everything and all, that's just part of your wounds too, but it's just got a different voice. But when you start working on yourself, you start recognizing what's the real deal and what's really you. And that's how you transform. So, a community provides support. It provides you a sounding board, because sharing is healing. Also, you're going to hear shares from other people, and it propels you, and it teaches you about the power of group energy. There's a lot of power in group energy, the right group. So, part of how we heal is through acceptance, it's through identification. All of that is with a group. It's part of seeing changes in other people. It's love, and it's strength based, meaning it's all about enhancing the strong part of you and bolstering up the parts of you that want to come through and want to expand. So, community is an anchor. And, you get grounded in a community. So, with all of that, we've covered a lot of material today. And what I'm going to do right now, because we're just about the top of the hour, is I want to tell you what we're going to be doing for tomorrow. So, tomorrow is the benefits of creating sacred space. And I love this section because I have created two sacred spaces in my home, but actually my entire home is considered a sacred space. So I really have objects in many areas in my home that just feel like it touches my spirit. And then the other thing we'll talk about is what to place in a sacred space. So tomorrow's kind of fun. It's all about sacred space, and that's a form of healing too, because when you have a sacred space, you can, well, I'll talk about that tomorrow. There's so much to go through with that, but it's beautiful. And I want to thank everybody for being here. I believe Amanda may have posted some comments for the homework. And remember, if you decide to do the homework for this group in all of the days, uh, one person would receive a book bundle or a gift card. And again, like I said, it's not that I really want to know that you've done the homework, although it's wonderful. I like knowing that people would understand and really take in this information, but it's that it helps you to further embed it inside of you as well. So thank you for being here today. We'll see you at the same time tomorrow. And gosh, this was fun for me. I hope it was fun for you. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking and how you felt about today. I would really love to hear. It helps me out. And if there's anything that you would like to know more about, we still have 3 days left, and we're going to be talking about a lot more stuff. All right. Take good care. Have a good evening. Bye bye now.